Hyvää huomenta, Jaakko.
Hyvää huomenta.
Ja tervetuloa mukaan.
Kiitoksia. Meni vähän viime tippaa, mutta tässä ollaan.
Huomenta.
Okay, it's already 9:01, so let's get started. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Expo's webinar, Connecting Central Europe, Opportunities for Export and Internationalization. And this webinar is arranged in cooperation with Connecting Finland and Technology Industries of Finland. And my name is Christian Schrey, and with us from the Expo, we also have Minna Jakobsson. And due to the COVID-19 virus, we are seeing a lot of changes in global trade. Companies are certainly seeing some important markets closing, and we closely have to monitor the situation on how different markets are opening up. In Europe, we are seeing huge recovery and revival packages. The EU leaders reached an agreement of 1,824 billion euros. So here we can, of course, see fantastic opportunities for our exporting companies. The global supply chain also has to be reconsidered, and nearshoring locations and high quality and cost-effective suppliers should, of course, be analyzed and utilized. Central and Eastern Europe is close to Finnish manufacturing companies, and their potential markets could offer lucrative opportunities in FDI and contract manufacturing. And on the topic, we have really great speakers with us today. First out will be Jaakko Hirvola from Technology Industries of Finland, and he will share his views on different business opportunities with CEE. After that, we will hear from the Connecting Finland team. They established a pool of experts advisory platform which works on a proactive consultation approach. As cost-efficient way with multi-countries focus, as well as active involvement of clients in the project implementation. All of their experts have a long history with Finnish business life and serving Finnish clients in various industries in their internationalization since early 2000. Speaking from the Connecting Finland team today will be Igor Derla, partner consultant from Poland. We also have Pavel Kopec, partner from Slovakia, who will cover also the Czech Republic. Then we have Attila Debreceni from Hungary, who is initiator and owner of the Connecting Finland platform, and Sorin Suciu, partner consultant from Romania, also with us. And then last but not least, Harri Ojala, with long experience from working with successful companies in the CEE region, and he will share his story with us later as well. And for our Q&A today, feel free to ask questions during the webinar. You can use the Teams chat, and even though the webinar is in English, feel free to ask questions also in Finnish or Swedish, and I will do my best to try to translate. If we receive a lot of questions, we can also send these to the speakers and come back to them later on. And keep in mind that the consultants will also be available for a 30-minute individual consultation with companies between 5th to 9th October. And these meetings can be requested then individually. So please contact the Connecting Finland team if you want to do that. Then again, to avoid overload, we ask you to keep your cameras off and microphones muted during the webinar, and the webinar is being recorded. Okay, without further ado, let's introduce our first speakers, Jaakko Hirvola from Technology Industries of Finland. The floor is yours, Jaakko.
Thank you, Christian, and thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. And it's an important topic, by the way. So it's a pleasure to participate in this discussion. As an introduction, I would like to just briefly introduce introduce the technology industries of Finland and give a few comments about the crisis, the COVID crisis impact on the technology industries of Finland and individual companies. And then maybe as an introduction to the next speakers, highlight some views on how I see the opportunities in Central Eastern Europe. Can you see my presentation now if I just put it on the presentation mode? Can you see that?
Yes, we can see it.
But do you see it? No, now you see it in the presentation in the wrong mode, I guess. Let me work on this just to make sure that I. Just a second. And now I share it as PowerPoint from here. Now this should be better. Is it okay?
Yes, very good.
It's fine.
Okay. You know, technology is always tricky for people working in technology, so never get used to that. Anyway, so welcome everybody on behalf of the technology industries of Finland. The Finnish economy is very open and very dependent on global demand and supply. And if we look at look at it from the technology industries of Finland point of view, it's really a big part of the export and the export dependency of the whole country. So about 50% of it represents about 50% of the Finnish exports. And by the way, about 2/3 of the private research and development investments in the country. So in terms of looking into where these companies invest, that's also very relevant. Now, of the export, about 70% goes to Europe, and Central Eastern Europe would be about 15% in total, which is roughly, let's say, 5 billion euros in total. Looking at what the technology industries are comprised of, it's 5 main industry sectors. It's the mechanical engineering, so people like Kone, Valmet, Automotive, Konecranes, Cargotec, many familiar names, Wärtsilä, and so forth. Many of them having also presence in the Central Eastern Europe countries. Secondly, it's the electronics and electrotechnical industries represented by Nokia, which is, I guess, the best known brand name, but also other like, let's say, Ensto as an example. Third one, not so visible probably in Central Eastern Europe, the metals producers, people like Outokumpu are having business well, partly in Poland, not so widely in other countries. IT, on the other hand, is clearly a future opportunity, I believe, in the Central Eastern Europe countries. We had some earlier discussions about Hungary, for example, when it comes to expanding the IT capabilities from Finland. And fifth, last but not least, consulting engineering companies. So 3 first very sort of industrial companies where looking at industrial production is clearly the topic, and where to have your physical supply chains and so forth, where to produce, that sort of questions are relevant. Tech industries of Finland is a federation representing 1,600 member companies, and more than 90% of our members are small and medium-sized enterprises. That's worth noting as well. Now, during the Corona crisis, the first shock to the companies was due to problems with supply chains. So it was about access to raw materials and components which were blocked due to the epidemic in China and due to the lack of alternative sources and alternative supply chain arrangements. So also subcontracted manufacturing of machine parts in China was collapsed during the first few weeks of the crisis, and that really showed the vulnerabilities of our global supply chains. Now, as the virus kept spreading, the problems in supply moved to more to the demand sides, and the negative impact is currently clearly on the global demand, which has dropped dramatically since the beginning of the crisis. And this again shows the dependency of our companies from global economy and global demand and global supply. Now, these issues have been costly and really severe for the tech industry companies. 70% of our member companies report that their revenues will decline this year compared to last year. One company in four, 25%, say that their revenues will drop more than 20%, which is quite dramatic on the revenue line. We already saw that the new orders dropped clearly during the first half of the year. What's worrying me most is that during the second quarter, the new orders of the big companies, if you look at the top 30 companies of our members, the new orders figure was dropped clearly more than the industry in average, which shows that the tsunami is on the way, so to say. The big companies' new orders will not reach the small companies at the end of the supply chains. So, and as a result, the total goods export declined 18% during the first half. However, I mean, even if this sounds really shocking, our companies say that the worst is yet to come. 2/3 of our companies have a view that the worst times are still ahead. Now, what does this mean? It means that the companies really have to rethink the whole business model, their suppliers, the whole supply chain, their products. Are their product portfolios correct? Should they look at alternative products and services? Are the customer segments correct? Should those be reviewed? And are the markets right? And whether those should be revisited, those selections. And of course, I mean, with the crisis experiences, companies are now more than before looking at the resilience of the operations as well, not to avoid excessive dependency on individual companies and countries. Many Finnish companies are looking into possibilities to move some parts of the supply chains from China or other Asian countries back to Europe, and there, of course, Central Eastern Europe is an interesting opportunity. From the demand perspective, if the current demand is not strong enough with the current products and customers, then companies should look at whether the new product offerings or new markets could help the situations and find new avenues for growth. So all in all, summarizing the opportunity for Central Eastern Europe countries and the Finnish companies. For the Finnish companies, one opportunity is clearly to move parts of the supply chain to Central Eastern Europe countries. Secondly, opening up new export in this area, and thirdly, expanding their presence, establishing new business operations in the area, in the region. All these options are relevant at the moment and considered by many companies. Now, combining this consideration with the stimulus packages and the recovery packages, EU has introduced those funds. Those enormous funds will clearly boost the development in many European countries and thereby making them even more lucrative and giving opportunities for them to also stimulate new business in those countries, and that makes it even more lucrative. And looking at the EU recovery packages, European EU single market is very important for the EU community, and particularly for an open market like Finland. Hence, one would hope that the recovery packages are not viewed as national opportunities only, but rather look at how we could develop more Europe-wide businesses and Europe-wide supply chains with that stimulation. So in summary, clearly opportunities exist, new possibilities in the air, hence a seminar like this is more than welcome. So let me thank Viexpo and Connecting Finland for the opportunity to co-organize this webinar, and wish you all welcome and wish a good webinar and discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jaakko, for your presentation on the topic, and also to the audience. You can also, of course, ask questions to Jaakko. You can do that from the chat, and we'll come back to that later. I think now it's time to give the word to the Connecting Finland team, and can see if Minna can share the presentation, and you may get started. So the floor is yours, Connecting Finland.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Christian and Viexpo, for this occasion. My name is Igor Derivo, and it's a pleasure to present the opportunities in manufacturing. My part would be Poland. I have 4 slides, the first you see, and then we will talk about the opportunities as Jaakko mentioned, so for sales, for sourcing, and for FDI. So on the slide, introductory, the GDP of Poland in terms of value, it's comparable to Sweden. It's actually a little bit bigger. Then it has been growing in last 30 years until 2020. And Poland is 11th biggest partner, export partner for Finland. And then the export value is about $2 billion. Polish exports to Finland is on a similar level, so the trade is balanced. Then I'm not sure if we see the right slide. The next slide, please. Yes. Then talking about the manufacturing outputs, we are the 5th largest producer in EU measured by salt production. And the manufacturing output, when you look in a time perspective between 2010 to 2018, it has grown by over 50%. So now I will talk about the opportunities for exports. So next slide, please. May I ask the next slide?
Yes, there seems to be some lag now. Sorry for this. I don't know why it doesn't want to go.
I may share this as well as but maybe you can restart.
Do you want to try to share it from your computer, or?
I can give it a try, yes.
For some reason this froze.
Okay, 1 second. Is it visible now?
Not yet, but I think it's coming.
Okay, 1 second.
Yeah, I have a bad line. It's showing me. I don't know why.
Okay, what about now?
Yes, we can
Now,
see the slides.
yes, perfect. Great.
Can you see now only the slides?
Yes.
Opportunity for
Yes,
sales. Okay. So we discussed that the
Yes.
manufacturing has been developing like quite fast in last years, but as manufacturing develops, there are various goods needed, raw materials, machines, consumable software. And assuming that the ultimate goal of any production is consumption, then we have like a large market of about 38 million consumers. Hence, we also have several high volume manufacturing industries. So it's, for instance, we produce 20,000 boats and yachts, 700,000 vehicles, which includes not only cars, but also, for instance, 70,000 trailers and semi-trailers. Now, what to remember when thinking of selling to manufacturing industry in Poland is the price sensitivity is higher than in Finland. It's not as high as it used to be, but still. But nevertheless, the higher segment goods also find their niches. Is it either valves, paints, I don't know, fireplaces, grills? You will find also more competitors, more international competitors, more local competitors than typically you would find in Finland also. Hence, there is some sort of local representation needed. So it could be either a distributor, sales representative, or even part-time sales representative, which is also a service we can provide. Some examples of successful sales brands in Poland, which you might also know, would be also Mirka, would be, for instance, Purmo. Okay, now about the sourcing. From a Finnish perspective, Poland is still a cheaper country. So statistically, 1 hour is 11 euros cost. In Finland, it would be over 30 euros. If looking for suppliers of various products and services, you will find those in a variety of sectors, in automotive, electronics, plastics, welded products, furniture, construction services. Nevertheless, there are some areas, for instance, precision industry, where Poland cannot offer too much. So it would be like a sales opportunity. Then Poland is also well connected, reachable by land and sea, and is also competitive in transportation. The reason is that it's the only landway from Western to Eastern Europe. It goes through Poland. So there is plenty of local suppliers of transportation services and logistics. A lot of suppliers have German references, and this is often appreciated by the Finnish companies seeking sourcing in Poland. In examples of sourcing, I give no names, but the boating business, for instance, is a very good example of contracting business in Poland. We have no market for boating with this 20,000. The next slide, final slide, the opportunity for FDI. What brings manufacturing investors to Poland is still cost. It's human resources, for instance, various languages, then market size and access to international clientele, as well as logistics, the proximity to the Western Europe. We show here an example cost of a low qualified production employee. This is something that you would pay in Poland, where the total employer cost is 840 euro roughly per month. Regarding long-term view, long-term stability, there are 3 main rating agencies. They all give Polish economy A-level ratings. It was also confirmed now in the COVID times with a stable outlook. Now, what will shape the manufacturing in the next year is, I would say, the state subsidizing of R&D and robotization spendings, which could be seen as an opportunity for sales again. There are many examples of Finnish FDIs, and I would say that one of the most recent registrants in Poland is a I believe Coca-Cola origin company Finmarine or Finmaster, perhaps now owned by another company. But just to summarize, manufacturing in Poland shall be seen or may be seen as an opportunity either for sales, sourcing, and FDI. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Igor, so much for the introduction. And yes, let's continue straight away with the next country and topic.
Hello, good morning. My name is Pavel Kopec from Connecting Finland, and I will be presenting Czech Republic and afterwards Slovakia. So if I can use your presentation, which is on screen, then we can go for the first slide in Czech Republic. Czech Republic is a country which is favorably located, I would say, in the interface of East and West. As you can see on the map, there's Germany and Austria representing the Western Europe, while the remaining neighboring countries, Poland, Slovakia, and Hungary, represent the eastern part of Europe. And according to a study by the commercial real estate services firm Cushman and Wakefield, the Czech Republic also has the most favorable conditions for expanding manufacturing in a region. And Czechia is ranking 4th in the global index. Better conditions are only found maybe in China or the United States or India. And the Czech Republic's success was mainly caused not only by its excellent location, but also thanks to the advanced business, economic, and political environment with low risks. And there are also quite low operating costs, including low energy or low construction costs. Czechia has traditionally close ties, of course, with Slovakia. We used to be one country, Czechoslovakia, as you may know. But Germany and Austria also have a great influence on Czechs, both culturally as well as in business standards, since many German and Austrian companies are operating in the country. Czech Republic also combines an outstanding level of general education with strong science and engineering disciplines. Technical education has a long tradition in the country and enjoys a good reputation around the world. And the availability of graduates in technical fields creates excellent environment for both manufacturing or for R&D oriented companies. Czech Republic also offers a transparent system of incentives. One form of investment incentive is corporate income tax relief for a period of 10 years, but there are some other incentives, for example, for R&D technology centers. Next slide, please. Labor force has good technical skills, and manufacturing sector is quite important in Czech Republic, while more than a quarter of the active labor force is employed in manufacturing. And thanks to 9 technical universities in the country with more than 20,000 graduates every year, there's a good availability of graduates in technical fields. So this brings some opportunities for investments in manufacturing or for R&D oriented companies to find some high quality employees. Czech also have a high degree of proficiency in English, and more than half of population speaks English, and about some 40% speak German. Czechs are also known for their high productivity levels and high degree of employee retention. And when we look at the average gross salaries for some of the job positions, they're maybe not the lowest in Central and Eastern Europe, but there is high productivity, high loyalty. And when we also take into account cultural proximity to Western Europe, all these factors outweigh any negative aspects. Next slide, please. The manufacturing sector is indeed an important sector. It has traditionally been an important contributor to economic growth and employment. Manufacturing sector represents more than a quarter of gross value added, which is more than 12% above EU average, and thus Czechia ranks among the top European countries. The sector represents an overwhelming majority of the country's exports and imports too. The automotive sector is basically the largest branch of Czech industry, both in terms of output and employment, and it counts for some 9% of GDP and some 2/3 of industrial exports. As many as 1.4 million vehicles are rolled out from Czech assembly lines, for example, last year. So there are 3 major car manufacturers besides the iconic Czech manufacturers and largest private employer, Skoda Auto. There are also 2 other major car makers like Hyundai Motor TPCA, which is a joint venture of Toyota and Group PSA. And there are approximately 800 companies involved in this industry. As the picture on the right indicates, other major industries in the country include metallurgy and fabricated metal products, machinery and equipment or electronics, but also production of plastics, glass or armaments is also strong in Czech Republic. And there are over 100,000 foreign companies already operating in Czech Republic, and so this includes also, of course, Finnish firms such as Kone, which is producing elevators and escalators, or Stora Enso, which is producing wood products, pellets, and they are also operating bio-waste heating plants. Next slide, please. According to World Economic Forum, Czech Republic is the most competitive economy in Central and Eastern Europe. It ranks as the 32nd most competitive economy in the world in their global competitiveness reports from last year. And manufacturing sector has a long tradition, long background, and strong links to German, Slovak, and Polish markets. These are the countries where most of the export is directed, mostly cars. And Czechia also imports mainly car parts from Germany and Poland. There are opportunities for Finnish investors with innovation or R&D projects, thanks to available labor force with good technical skills, good education. There are also possibilities for cooperation with local partners. There are possibilities or opportunities for Finnish suppliers too, e.g., especially to the automotive industry. Although there is already a high level of automation in the sector due to the current context of some labor shortages in the sector, and due to some revised CO2 emission standards for cars, car makers and other manufacturers are expected to increase their investment in equipment. So when considering Czechia as a place to expand your business to, it is definitely good to consider the high degree of security and relative economic and political stability compared with its counterparts in the region. There is also and with its location, Czechia provides excellent opportunities for further expansion in the region. For example, many foreign companies appoint Czech distributors to cover also the neighboring Slovak market. Next slide, please. Now I will talk briefly about Slovakia. Slovakia is a country which is next slide, please. First, starting Slovakia, it's strategically located, whether you are as well, because there is a good access to neighboring markets, whether you are manufacturers looking to satisfy some cross-border customers in Czechia, Poland, Austria, or Hungary, or even Ukraine, or you are just looking for strategically located warehouse in Central Europe, Slovakia is just a perfect location for you. Slovakia has a relatively well-developed infrastructure, especially in the western part of the country. And there are some other advantages. For example, there is euro, since the country is in Eurozone, which makes the financial transactions much easier. Slovakia is also one of the safest and politically most stable countries in Europe, and has relatively high labor productivity in the region. The labor force is still quite cost-effective, and it's skilled and loyal. With the strategic location in Europe, the country also has great export potential, and Slovakia is already the most open economy in European Union. It's exporting most of its production. Globally, it ranks first in export of goods to GDP ratio. Slovakia has also great potential for innovation, research and development, and also offers attractive investment incentives, as well other special tax regimes for R&D activities. Next slide, please. Slovakia has a great tradition and high standards in many areas, including automotive and engineering. Some 16% of Slovak labor forces work in the manufacturing sector. In terms of productivity measured as GDP per hour worked, and as compared to European Union, Slovakia with some 78% is the leader in the CE region. And Slovak universities also offer a large variety of study fields, enabling some multidisciplinary skill set for their graduates. There are some 35 universities with 50,000 graduates, and many of the universities, I think some 19 universities, already cooperate with over 1,000 companies across Slovakia. Since the national R&D specialization strategies focus on innovation support through cooperation between enterprises and research institutions in some of the key sectors of the Slovak economy, there are many successful cooperations especially in material research and nanotechnology, in biomedicine, biotechnology, ICT, etc. Slovaks also have relatively good multilingual skills. Some 85% of Slovak population speaks at least one foreign language, and most of the industry is focused on western and northern part of the country. There is a relatively high level of unemployment in the eastern part of the country, and which offers some opportunities for labor force. Even the wages are different in both parts of the country. Next slide, please. Slovakia is a global superpower, let's say, in car manufacturing, and a leader in the number of cars produced per inhabitant, of course, because Slovakia is a small country. But we like last year, we manufactured 202 cars per 1,000 inhabitants, and thanks to that, we have occupied the top spot in the world. And we've been in this position since 2013, so it's quite many cars per the number of inhabitants. Slovakia also became a seat of various famous automobile manufacturers, including Volkswagen, PSA, Peugeot, Citroën, Kia Motors, and most recently also Jaguar Land Rover. Automotive industry accounted for almost half of Slovakia's total industrial production, and over 46% of national exports. Country exports are usually directed mainly to Germany, especially cars and car parts, of course, but also some flat TVs. And Germany is also an important importer of products. Other key sectors include basic metals and fabricated products, machinery and equipment, and rubber and plastic products. And there are many foreign manufacturers present on the market, including some Finnish manufacturers like Enix, which produces cable harnesses, the engineering company Fortaco, Metsä Tissue, manufacturing hygienic articles from paper in Slovakia, Payco producing anchoring systems and steel beams, Raniplast manufacturing a packaging film in joint venture with Slovak company Chemoplast, or Tamtron producing digital scales and weighing systems. Next slide, please. So to summarize, Slovakia is one of the safest and political most stable countries in Europe. Automotive industry is dominant, as I mentioned, but it allowed other related industries to grow, including the manufacture of basic and fabricated metals. And in terms of there are also various incentive schemes for industry technology centers, combined projects of industrial production and technology centers, and for shared services centers. In short, innovative investors have opened doors in Slovakia, and although Slovakia belongs to countries with the highest number of installed robots, there are still opportunities for some solutions from the industry 4.0 area, or including Internet of Things. So this offers some opportunities to Finnish innovative companies. Employment in high-tech manufacturing sectors as a share of total employment is actually the highest in the region, which also brings opportunities for R&D or cooperation projects. And also, investors could also appreciate that Slovakia has the highest percentage of people working at night and weekends. As I mentioned, the country has a strategic location. It has euro, it has skilled labor, and there are some existing industry clusters, which are all good reasons to consider. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Pavel, so much for the presentation on these two countries, and let's move forward to our next speaker, Mr. Attila. There you go, and please friendly reminder on the timetable.
Yes. Thank you. First of all, good morning everybody from Hungary, and on behalf of Connecting Finland, really we are thankful for Viexpo and Technologia Tellusis to have this webinar. And time is a little bit behind us, but anyway, I want to briefly introduce Hungary. So please, next slide. Behind these nice logos, history, I think, tells more. So after the changes, early 90s, the first real wave in manufacturing was automotive sector. Then Opel and Suzuki came to the Hungarian market, and of course they bring so many subcontractors. But from Finnish point of view, I would like to highlight and just refer to the major ones. They entered Konecranes with sales office, and then gradually with some strategic partners in Hungary, they have some assembly partners and serving the market. Unfortunately, I couldn't put Nokia Mobile anymore here as a reference from Finnish point of view, or Elcotech, but when I joined Finpro, because I have history with Finpro 2000, early 2000, when we started the presentation that how big is the Finnish presence here in Hungary, we always nicely said that 1.2 billion Finnish FDI was counted that time, and Finnish companies roughly offer job for 12,000-13,000 people, and Harjola, who was that time head of Elcotech, probably can a little bit explain more about that early 2000. But recently, I would say the main wave in manufacturing here in Hungary, the tire manufacturers came to recently, big names like Hankook, Apollo Tires, and further investment from Continental. And we have a quite big electronic base, started early 2000. And I would say it's not a surprise, but three big major electronic battery manufacturers just recently building huge factories here in Hungary. Koreans and even Chinese. And why not to mention two nice success stories here, like Fortaco, who overtook the Rautorukki local Hungarian assets early 2008, 2007. They recently developing heavily and creating biggest production site for Fortaco within the group. And Technicum, really nice example how a Finnish company entered the Hungarian manufacturing market through acquisition. They started with minority shares with a local prosperous Hungarian-owned company, and then took a majority. And they have also success stories with incentives recently from Hungarian government. So please, the next slide. Yes, when I wanted to highlight Hungary, two aspects I think relevant to mention: the availability and cost of labor. That means that thanks to the big international players and thanks to our technical university, quite good system and reputation. So there is an excellent for Finnish for foreign companies to utilize these universities, and even there are so many strategic partnerships. So, for example, Budapest Technical University has excellent relation with big players like Bosch, even recently Audi and Mercedes, but also Audi then came to Győr, nearby the Austrian border, immediately build a good relation with the local technical universities, or Miskolc area with Bosch financed department. That also created such a feature that the Hungarian government realized and forcing common R&Ds among universities, cities, and the foreign companies on the special location. And then we talk about availability. Recently, there is a good tendency in vocational schools, meaning that we are taking a little bit or adapting the German model, meaning that increasing the practical training at the company side. So graduated staff would be almost available for companies. And cost level wise, I would say that quite lucrative, not just as you can see in the table, gross salary wise, but I would like to highlight here the side cost. And even thanks to the COVID-19, sorry to say, but still the social contribution percentage from gross salary will be dropping. And I think quite lucrative to highlight here the 9% corporate tax. Unfortunately, the VIT, we are the winner in Europe. Next slide, please. Yes, and not because of the COVID-19, but previously I would say that the Hungarian Investment Agency, and thanks to the Hungarian government VIP package scheme, we were always quite well considered as the investment location. And even I would like to mention here that Konecranes carried out a quite big greenfield investment assignment, and finally they selected Hungary. And 2012 they even bought a huge industrial plot near in Miskolc area. But unfortunately, the project is on standby. But that was that time a quite positive from Finnish point of view that Konecranes considered Hungary as establishing a quite big operation here. And of course, COVID also created quite nice support grant scheme from government side, but also that Finnish companies should consider the EU Cohesion Fund, and the government is really pushing and supporting the R&D driven FDAs, and I think Finns could utilize that grant nicely. Next slide, please. the summary, just want to add here that we have an export-driven manufacturing sector. Even the 100 billion euro output, yearly output, it's quite export-driven. Over 70% mainly goes to Germany, Austria, or Italian markets. And I don't know. It's even from Finnish point of view, probably interesting that 70% is mainly major or big-sized companies who are playing on this market. And then referring the labor force, I think we have available labor. Even automotive sector has some difficulties. So I think easy to find even engineer level guys. And again, to highlight the R&D driven support scheme from government side and the local investment agency HIPA is quite open and willing to even consider any kind of request. And Hungary geographically, I think, has a good location, serving either west east. We consider let's say ex-Yugoslavian markets or towards Romania and Bulgaria. And recently, I would say that we have excellent road infrastructure, so reaching our borders via highways, and still developments on the head. And finally, it's not most probably a surprise for Finnish business life that Finland has an excellent image here in Hungary, and many cases Finland is considered as a benchmark country. So that's briefly from my side. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Attila. And Sorin, our next speakers.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Sorin Suciu, and I'm the partner of Connecting Finland in Romania. Next slide, please. What I'll tell you today, in a nutshell, is that Romania is the second largest market in the CE, positioned at the crossroads of three large markets, having a strong manufacturing industry and competitive labor costs. Next, please. The manufacturing industry is concentrated around the biggest university centers of the country, and it accounts for approximately 40% of the GDP. More than 50% of its output is exported. The biggest manufacturing sectors are automotive and transport equipment, basic metals and fabricated metal products, electrical equipment, machinery and equipment, but aerospace, defense and furniture industries are also growing at a fast pace. Regarding the furniture industry, maybe it's worthwhile mentioning that Romania is among the first 10 IKEA suppliers worldwide. The main drivers for the growth of the manufacturing industry are sustainable growth of the economy, significant domestic consumption, almost half of the manufactured goods, the popularity of the manufacturing industry both internally, since it's the choice of 29% of the working force and 40% of the students, and externally, substantial amounts of foreign direct investments are destined to manufacturing, 31% to be more specific, and the availability of EU and national financial support for the manufacturing business development. Apart from the industrial parks incentives, there are some other governmental initiatives for the manufacturing industry, such as exemption from profit tax for the reinvested profit, deduction of R&D, research and development eligible expenses up to 50%, accelerated depreciation of machinery, equipment and real estate used for R&D purposes, and state support in the form of non-reimbursable grants. The intensity of state aid varies according to the region from 10% in Bucharest to 50% in most of the country. Next slide, please. The automotive and transport equipment industry stands for 24% of the manufacturing output, and it employs 185,000 people in Romania. Dacia and Ford are the backbone of the industry. Next slide, please. The labor costs, are substantially lower than the EU average, and employees are generally more flexible than in the Nordic countries, more prepared to handle overtime work, to adjust vacation periods, etc., to quote Mr. Carl Widder, former CEO of Ecolor, presently the honorary consul of Sweden to Cluj. You can see some examples of gross salaries and the side costs in the table. Mind you that the 10% income tax is included in the 45% employees' contribution in the side cost table. One more thing, small companies having less than 1 million euro turnover, the so-called micro enterprises, have a special regime regarding the corporate tax. It is 1% for micro enterprises having at least one employee and 3% for those that have no employees. Next slide, please. I just want to mention two of the most important reasons to consider by Finnish companies for producing in Romania, based on my experience with Swedish companies. And these are Nordic businessmen have a very good image in Romania. And due to this good name of the Nordics, your company will be highly prioritized by the Romanian suppliers, even if you are a small company placing a small order. And second, geographical and cultural proximity to Finland. We share the same system of values. When someone says yes, it can be done, one means yes, it can be done, while a no is a no, especially when it comes to quality issues and delivery terms, unlike the case in some countries in Asia. To summarize it, Romania is the second largest market in the CE, positioned at the crossroads of three large markets and the Black Sea, having a strong manufacturing industry and substantially lower labor costs than the EU average. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Sorin, and thanks to all the speakers for giving this great information about these different markets. And there are a lot of opportunities for our companies indeed. And now let's hear from one who has personal experience of utilizing these opportunities. Last but not least, let's hear from Harri Ojala. And even though, sorry for being a little bit behind schedule, but no worries, Harri, we will give you your full 600 seconds. The stage is yours.
Okay, thank you so much. I hope you can hear me clearly. Anyway, good morning everybody from my side also. And maybe I first introduce myself a little bit. Yes, my name is Harri Ojala, worked most of my professional career for Finnish companies abroad. First close to 20 years in Germany and US, and after that over 15 years in Central Eastern Europe. And today I want to share some of my thoughts, experiences, and also some things which did not go so well when I worked and lived in Hungary and Poland. And I have also gained some experiences in other countries in that area like Romania, Serbia, and Ukraine. And in order to be productive in 10 minutes, I decided not to have slides, knowing that might make my story even longer and never know when to stop. But I think that Christian will help me then when I talk too much. Anyway, at the Central European area, I mostly work for Elcotech, Cargotec, and PKC Group, listed companies, and then recently for Technicum as a CEO of Technicum and as a head of the board of Technicum subsidiary in Hungary called T-Plastic, where Attila already mentioned how we became a T-Plastic majority shareholder. I still say we because I stopped working full-time for Technicum 2 years ago, but I'm still one of the biggest private shareholders in that company. But let's go to the agenda. So why to manufacture in CE? And I think I just continue the information flow you heard already today. CE is not different to any other locations. You need to have a plan. You need to have a company strategy, must be clear and well implemented and communicated. And of course, it needs to be backed by your company's board, managing director, and also the majority shareholders. I have seen some Finnish companies to come and go, and I think some companies which didn't do so well, and I wasn't so sure if they really knew why they came to CEA, and I didn't see the full commitment from the day one, and then 2-3 years later they were gone. But I can say that whoever came there with a good plan, with a good strategy, they've been successful. So you must have a reason to come to CEO. You come to Poland, Hungary, Czech, Slovakia, or even some surrounding countries, Serbia, Romania, or Ukraine. There must be a reason. One reason can be competitive labor cost. And I have to say that the labor laws are very clear in every country. They are not flexible, but they are very clear. You know what you can do, and you know how to run your company. You can be close to your customers, market suppliers. We heard today that the markets in CEE are growing fastly, and I can also underline that. You can have other reasons like subsidies, local financing possibilities, local partners, one-time opportunities like acquisitions, how we did with Technicum, or something else. Like in Serbia, that's the only country who has a free trade agreements with both European Union and Russia at the same time. And in fact, I want to say that we ran a project with Attila a few years ago in Serbia, which turned to be very successful. Or Western Ukraine, where most of the people speak Hungarian, and European Union is only 1 hour away. I'm talking about Hungary and Slovakia. In Ukraine, the labor costs are also much lower than in European Union. There are already many German companies, mostly related to automotive, and they've been there a long time. And a lot of people think in Finland there's a war in Ukraine. Yeah, might be in the eastern part of Western. I would say it's a business as usual. Attila already mentioned that the corporate income tax in Hungary is only 9%, might be one of the lowest in European Union. That can be the reason also. I know some Finnish companies who really are taking benefit of that, making good business in Hungary and paying significantly lower taxes than in some other countries. And then some words how to be successful. It's just like in everywhere else. You need to know your business, you need to know your customers, and you need to know your customers' business as well. And you are not there alone. You have to be aware that there's a tough competition, and therefore you need to define your own goals and objectives and communicate them to your customers, to your own people, and run your show very professionally. You need to understand your value chain from CEA perspective point of view and define your own key competitive edge. I cannot address more. You need to have an excellent management in place. It can be Finnish, local, German, Italian, whatever. But please, if you go to CEE, don't have there a guy who travels every Friday home and comes back Monday morning. I can tell you it doesn't work. You need to have there somebody who lives there 365 days a year and is part of the local management and part of the local business. You need to also pay competitive market compensation. Might be surprisingly high for the general manager or for the top management, sometimes even higher than in Finland. But pay for success and keep the whole organization very simple. Set responsibilities, accountabilities, bonuses, control and management system right. And of course, follow and control them closely and be visible, show leadership. I think that's all over the world, but it's very important in Central Europe that if you go there, go with the plan and be there. I cannot emphasize really enough that the local management is a key for the success. And in my point of view, I have hired same people again and again. I have some guys, Polish, Hungarian, Estonian, Russians, and every time I got a new opportunity, if I knew that they are available, there were some people who have been working for me in 3-4 companies already. It's all about people and the hands-on management. And then maybe some war stories and samples, especially with Elcotec and Cargotec. Cargotec, I was the head of the project when Cargotec came to Poland about, I think, 12-15 years ago. We really utilized the local opportunities. We had a good cooperation with universities. We knew the local decision makers. We ran some local financing. We took advantages of local subsidies. And in Hungary with Elcotec, we were even able to change 2 laws related to value-added tax when Hungary became a member of European Union. So it's all about the connections and that you show that you are a good corporate citizen in that country. Maybe a kind of funny story. When I moved to Hungary, I came from Texas and I was running the management meetings in Hungary, and I was a little bit wondering why I didn't get too many questions. And then 2 weeks after I started, there came one of my guys. In fact, he was from Denmark, and said that, Harry, you cannot keep talking like that. You have such a thick Texas accent, and you use sentences and words which are not known here. If you want to be successful here, you need to be simple. And so I started to shorten my sentences, be even more clear what I say, and I wanted to be part of my Hungarian management team. And I think 2 years later, we have hired 6,000 people during that period of time. We could say that we were successful, and we had a very good management team in place. Same again with Elcotec and Cargotec. We had direct contact to decision makers, local mayors, even including the ministeriums. And then I want to mention one thing which I haven't heard today. You can get support from the embassies of Finland, but you need to be well prepared. You need to have business plan, and you need to have objectives clear. Embassies get a lot of phone calls, requests for connections, and I have to say that if you know what you want, the embassies can help you. And then maybe some words about the Cargotec in Poland. That kind of, for me at least, was interesting. When we started to build up the management team there, we realized very fast that Stettin is not the place where the Polish people really see where they want to live, where they want to move. We really couldn't get anybody from Warsaw to move to Stettin. So we started to think that where we can get international management talent who would be willing to be part of our future. And then we got an idea that where do they have a lot of good Polish people who've been successful in business. We figure out that must be Ireland and other country in Germany. And in Ireland that time there was a recession, so we hired headhunting companies in both countries, started to run ads there. And sure enough, we got a lot of good candidates. We invited most potential guys to Stettin, interviewed them, and a few months later we had a very solid Polish management team in place where most of the people have gained their experiences in Western Europe. And I think that was really the cornerstone for our success in Poland. And that today the Cargotec Polish factory is the biggest in Europe, and they have pretty much moved most of the manufacturing from Finland and Sweden to Poland already. Then Romania was mentioned. I was operating there about 13 years ago. I have to only say that in Romania, do everything right and by the book, have clear policies and control, and there's no room for anything else. Legal system works also in Romania, and I know Finnish companies have been a little bit worried about Romania. I can only say that's just like Hungary. There's not big difference, and what was mentioned earlier from Romania, I can underline that also. Then recently I've been active with Technicum. Yes, we have about 450 people in Solnok at the moment, and we've been very successful. And I think one example is that about 2 years ago, I got a phone call from the Solnok management that there's an acquisition possibility in Budapest. There's an Italian company who is, whatever reason, going back to Italy and wants to sell all their assets. So very quickly I went to Hungary and we did our due diligence and realized that that's a good opportunity for us. I presented the plans to our board that time, and 2 weeks later made an offer, and 2 weeks from that we bought all the assets and moved them to Solnok, and now today that business unit what we created that time is very profitable and has created growth for us in Hungary. Then maybe some words about our Hungarian business generally, that yeah, it's not always easy to find the suitable workforce, and we also import people from Ukraine and Serbia. And Attila, help me if I'm wrong, but a few years ago, the Prime Minister Orbán issued a new law where he offered Hungarian people who lived in Ukraine, Slovakia or Serbia, offered them a Hungarian citizenship. Maybe he needed new voters for the election, I don't know. But anyway, today there's a lot of people who have a Hungarian passport who live in Serbia, Ukraine, or even in Slovakia, and many of those are willing to work in Hungary. And we really utilize that. We have people from Ukraine and Serbia who work in Hungary now, and we have to be flexible. Like most of them, they work 3 weeks, 60 hours a week, 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, and after that take 1 week vacation and go back home. And that's been a way how we were able to gain more workforce in Hungary when in some areas there's already now a little bit of shortage. Then maybe some other words about the Central European area. The weekly working time is more than 3 hours longer than in Finland. I just checked it yesterday, and I think it's over 39 hours per week in every one of those countries. 2 shifts, 3 shifts, not an issue. Overtime, not an issue. And I can also say that there's not one prime minister who talks about 6-hour working day. They really want to have your business, and they are pro manufacturing companies. Acquisitions are also possible. I think some of the entrepreneurs who started their business 20-25 years ago are getting old, and they are looking somebody who could buy their companies. Even now, when I'm not anymore that active in Central Eastern Europe, I got contacts once a while who call me and ask that if I know anybody who would be interested to buy their businesses. Recently, also the cheap Hungarian forint, I think, has given more opportunities. When I went to Hungary 20 years ago, €1 was, I think, 220 forints, and today morning it was 365, and just a few months ago it was 345. So maybe this is now the time to look even more carefully the opportunity of acquisitions, particularly in Hungary, because of the weak currency.
Very good. I think, Harry, I'm afraid I would have to stop you here now.
Okay.
It's too bad, because I think there's a lot of great example here, and I'm sure a lot of us could listen to you talk all day about these concrete things you have experienced in the market. But thank you very much for sharing your stories with us and sharing your experiences. And I think I would have to comment on what you said about building your local team and supporting that team, because I think a good lesson that we learn now during this situation is that the companies who have built existing teams in different markets have been able to continue their exporting internationalization business as usual, compared to the companies who are usually traveling to sell and to make business in different markets. So I think this could be a good strategy also here. Now to summarize, I see we don't at the moment, we haven't received any questions in the chat, but please keep in mind that you can of course also contact any one of our speakers individually and ask them questions if you'd like. You can also contact the VExpo personnel, and we can also deliver your messages forward if you want to. And also a reminder of the 30-minute individual consultation opportunity with the Connecting Finland team. So make sure you make use of that as well. But we will also send you a feedback link after this webinar, and we hope that you use a couple of minutes of your time to fill in that, your ideas and feedback. Of course, it's really important to us, and we'll also continue these webinars in the future. So if you have any ideas for that, please let us know. But thank you, Jaakko, Connecting Finland team, and thank you, Harri, also for participating. And thank you all also to the participant for being with us today. And let's stay in touch. Thank you, everybody.
Much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.